we are reviewing equations and the distributive property. So our objective says I will be able to solve multi-step equations. Multi-step equations using inverse operations, the order of operations, the wall technique. The wall is where we just draw the line down the middle. And the second thing is I will be able to use the distributive property and the product property to simplify expressions. So, two different things that I've seen that we need a little extra support on. The main thing about this is if you do not have this down, it is hard to do anything that we are doing going forward. So this says to solve and check. The first thing I'm going to do, split it down the middle. Identify what variable is in the equation. I'm solving for x. I see on the same side as the x I have two operations. Multiplication, this 4 written right next to this h means multiplication, and then addition. Remember, when we are solving an equation, when we are looking for an unknown, we work backwards using inverse order of operations. So the order of operations backwards. So I'm figuring out, what am I getting rid of first? Addition or multiplication? Well, I'm getting rid of addition first because I'm working backwards. I get rid of addition using subtraction. So I subtract 5 to get rid of that addition. That's blurry. Now, if I subtract 5 on this side, what you do to one side, you've got to do to the other. So subtract 5 on this side. Those 5's cancel. Drop down that 4x. That gives me 4x equals 17 minus 5, which is 12. To finish, to get rid of multiplication, I do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. Divide each side by 4. That gives me x equals 3. My solution is 3. Now, it said to solve and check. So to check it, I've got to take this 3 and plug it back into the original equation. So everywhere I see an x, I replace it with 3. So 4 times 3 plus 5 equals 17. I'm just checking to make sure my answer is correct. Split it down the middle. I say 12 plus 5 equals 17. Oops, 17. 17 equals 17. So that is the solution. I know my answer is correct. Those people who are in my room waiting, can you wait just another minute? Thank you. All right, so that is a review of two-step equations. This, y'all are killing me on this with the test. Y'all, so many of y'all missed that. And where you're missing it is right here. These negative signs right here. That's what's getting y'all, okay? So when you are distributing, when you've got a number on the outside of parentheses that needs to be distributed to both terms on the inside, what I've got to do, I draw my arrows showing that I am distributing. I remember that when I am distributing, I am multiplying. So I've got a negative times a positive. A negative times a positive is going to give me a negative. Okay? And then I've got xy times y squared. X, there's no x here. I've got an x on the outside. There's no x here, so I leave that x. Then I've got y to the first times y squared. We are multiplying, so we keep the base. We add the exponent. So that's negative xy cubed. Remember, keep that base, don't touch. Add the power, that's not asking too much. So, y to the first plus y to the second gives me y to the third. If I'm multiplying, I add my exponents. Now I have a negative times a negative here. Okay? I've distributed to the first term, now I need to distribute to the second. I've got a negative times a negative, which is going to give me a positive. I've got x times x squared. X times x squared gives me x to the third. Keep the base, add the powers. So x times x squared gives me x to the third. I've got a y right here that I cannot combine with anything in here because there are no like bases. So x to the third y, and then I have a z from there. Okay? So I'm just combining the bases that are the same. I'm adding the exponents if the bases are the same. If the bases are not the same, I just write them right next to each other, which shows multiplication. These two are not like terms. They do not have the same variables raised to the same power. This one doesn't have a z, this one does. This x is not raised to the third power, this one is. So you cannot combine those two. Box it in. Okay? That is my final answer. Here, we're using the distributive property, which is what we just did, to solve an equation. So I split this down the middle. So earlier, in this first equation, we had no simplifying. Well, where's that first equation? Oh, it's somewhere. There it is. We had no simplifying to do. We just started solving. Okay? We started solving because there was nothing I could clean up on the left side. Here, there's something I can clean up on the left side. What I can do is I can distribute before I start solving. So I drop down this x. I've got 3 multiplied by 2x. 3 times 2x gives me 6x, plus 3 times 4 gives me 12, equals 47. Okay, I distributed before I could solve this equation. Now I still have some more cleaning up I can do. I've got x plus 6x. 1x plus 6x. I'm combining like terms before I start solving. 1x plus 6x gives me 7x plus 12, which equals 47. Now I just need to continue solving. I've got multiplication and addition. Again, inverse order of operations. I get rid of addition first using the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. Subtract 12 on both sides. Those cancel. Drop down that 7x. That gives me 7x equals 47 minus 12, which gives me 35. I finish by dividing by 7 on each side. That gives me x equals 5. X equals 5. 35 divided by 7 gives me 5. Alright, next one. Simplify before I solve. Now here, again, I have a lot of stuff going on in this equation. I have a lot of stuff going on. It says to solve, it says to justify, but we're not going to do that. First thing I do, split it straight down the middle. Split it straight down the middle. Then I see a lot of distribution that needs to happen before I can start solving. I've got variables on both sides of the equation. I know eventually they're all going to have to be on one side, but before I can do that, I need to do this distributive property right here. I've got to clean up this equation first. So 5 times 2x, that gives me 10x. 5 times 4, that gives me 20. I distribute it, I bring down the rest of the equation. Here on the left side, I leave that 6 because I've got some distribution that needs to happen right there. I've got to distribute, I've got to clean up before I can start solving. So 2 times 3x, that gives me 6x. 2 times 12, that gives me 24. Okay? I'm distributing to both terms. Now, I got to see, do I have any like terms I can combine? Is there any more cleaning up I can do before I start moving things? Yeah. I've got a 10x minus a 2x. I'm going to combine that on the left side. 10x minus 2x gives me 8x plus 20, which equals, got to combine my like terms on this side. On this side, my like terms are 6 and 24. 6 plus 24 gives me 30. 30 plus 6x. Okay? Now what I want to do, I've got to get all of my variables over on the same side. Right now they are not on the same side. So what I want to do is I want to move this 6x over to the left side. So to do that, let's subtract. Since it's being added, let's move that positive 6x over to this side by subtracting. Now here, if I'm subtracting 6x, I need to subtract 6x to this side. But I can't subtract it from 20 because those aren't like terms. I've got to subtract it from this 8x because those are like terms. Those cancel. 8x minus 6x gives me 2x plus 20, which equals 30. Now I finally just have a two-step equation that, again, I'm using inverse order of operations to solve. I've got multiplication and addition. I get rid of addition first by subtracting 20 on each side. Those cancel. I drop down that 2x. I've got 2x equals 30 minus 20, which gives me 10. I finish by dividing by 2 on each side. That gives me x equals 5. X equals 5. Make sure you have all of those steps. That is all.